gotta rebuild yourself. I know the world is slowly breaking you down.
Thank you for coming to a Letter to the Reader podcast, where we're focused on healing our community through having the hard discussions and holding each other accountable. Here we have Maider Yang with us. She used to live where I lived, and she was very good at baking cakes. She was married to a very well-known person within our Hmong community here. Yeah, and then she decided that she wanted better for herself. And this episode is about divorce and being a divorcee and the challenges that she's faced these past couple months. So it's still very fresh. So please join us as we welcome Maider Yang, the one and only best cake maker ever.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I started this podcast because we have a lot of taboo topics in the Hmong community that's not talked about a lot. And I don't think that we're going to be able to fix those problems within our community if we don't talk about them. I don't want anybody to feel like they're attacked or that we're trying to make a narrative when we're not. We're simply just trying to talk about the problems that happened to us. So let's go ahead and get started. So were you born in a Christian family or a shaman family?
I was born into a shaman family. My grandma was shaman and my grandpa helped her out a lot. And so I was not exposed to Christianity until, a little bit here and there with my family, because there's some of my family members that are, but it wasn't until I got married that I really got to know God and who he was and all of that good stuff.
Okay, so you guys were like strictly shaman, right? Like the jingle bell and everything.
Yes.
Okay, and then does your family still practice shamanism now?
A little bit. They're not as traditional. They're kind of trying to pave their own ways, just because a lot of them are much younger now, and again, it ties back to the secretive thing, and so a lot of them they never learned because our elders were pretty secretive about their traditions, and now that a lot of the elders aren't here anymore, there's really nobody to teach them, and so we're kind of paving our own way of shamanism, like modern shamanism.
Okay, and then you have siblings that are shaman, like they practice the jingle bell and everything like that.
I am actually the oldest of my siblings, and I have 8 younger siblings, and so they do not. They don't really believe in all that, but because my parents still practice it, they kind of just go along with it.
Yeah, I guess that's like the same for me too, because like my parents are strictly shaman and everything like that. I have a couple siblings that are shaman and they actually do the jingle bell and everything like that. So like, what about the shaman culture and the Christianity culture did you find most interesting to you? Like, what draws you to either religion?
I think what draws me to Christianity, first and foremost, is just the idea that the world doesn't necessarily belong to you, and that you are just a small part of it. And I guess it's more like a philosophy that you live by than a religion. I don't know, but I believe that there is a greater being, a greater creator, and we are just living in their world, and we're just here to make it better for everyone, and that's kind of what drew me to that. And so in that sense, it kind of gives me hope, and it gives me a sense of I guess, I don't know, righteousness, to be good and to stand for justice. And then with shamanism, I think it's just because I grew up with it that there are certain things that I genuinely believe. Like, we worship our ancestors, and I think that that is very important, to know your lineage, to respect your lineage, all of that. But do I believe that there's like ghosts and whatnot, or like, all that stuff? Like, not necessarily, but I do believe in spiritual healing, and that spiritual health is very important.
Sorry about that.
I know you're fine.
Okay. So I guess like growing up, did you grow up in like a middle class, a lower middle class, or upper class family?
Um, I would say we grew up more, I mean, if we're looking at the numbers, we're lower class. But if we're talking about if we had enough to eat, if we had a roof over our head, having a two-car, having two cars growing up, I would say we were better than most. But I did not realize that my family was poor until I met my ex-husband. And then I was like, oh, we're poor.
Uh,
We're considered poor.
your your ex-husband, I know that you didn't really want to talk about your ex-husband too much because you didn't want to like disgrace your in-laws and
Mhm.
everything like that. But like I don't really know what happened. It's like I guess my research, I concluded nothing.
Um, I really don't mind talking about him specifically. I just would rather keep my in-laws, out of this just because I have a lot of respect for them and a lot of love for them. If we're talking about this, let's just get it over with. I feel like they loved me more than he ever did, and they supported me a lot more than he ever did. And so I cannot possibly tarnish that relationship. But
Mhm.
if we're talking about what happened, I think that if you were to ask any person who goes through a divorce, it's never really just one thing, and it's never just really a big thing. It's always little things that happen, little things that build up, and eventually they become big things, and it just breaks the marriage. And for me, it was little things and big things, of course, things that I just absolutely couldn't forgive because they went against my morals. They went against everything I ever believed in. And I'm a very strong-headed person, and when I have morals, I live by it, and you can't tell me otherwise. And so there were just things like he would lie about things. There were cheating involved. Just stuff like that. And I just could not forgive that. And ultimately, I had to make the decision to choose myself and to leave. And I think that a lot of people can relate to me when I say, you don't want to leave, you don't choose to leave, but you have to for yourself.
Going back to, I guess, the beginning, I know that like getting divorced, it's really hard as a home
Mhm.
daughter to kind of have to accept that you have to give up on this relationship because I know that our mothers and their mothers before them, that was never an option for them.
Yeah, that's
Because
right.
in the old country, you're shamed for being a
Hmm.
divorcee and you're not respected. And if you have children, then your children has to stay with the husband and you can't take them with you because they're his seeds, right?
Yes.
So I understand that that's like super difficult. Just being a home woman in general and going into divorce and even thinking about it is like,
Mhm.
you kind of shy away from it because of what your mother and their mothers have told you before. When you were a child, growing up, especially in a shaman household, I know they probably pounded that into your head to be a good
Mhm.
nya, to kill chicken, to
Yes,
do that. Uh,
100%.
what was your view on marriage before you got married?
It was very conflicting because I grew up here in the US and I had a lot of American values and whatnot. And so growing up, I remember this, my mom told me, um, if you're not good at cooking, you're not good at being a ya, your husband's just gonna yell at you and kick you, and everybody's just gonna hate you. And I always argued back. I always told her, why would I want to marry a guy who wants to kick me just because I can't cook or clean? That doesn't make sense at all. And so I always told myself that's not gonna happen. That's not gonna be me. And although my ex-husband was not physically abusive, he didn't verbally tell me that I'm expected to do these things. It was like an unspoken expectation. And and how I know that it's unspoken is sometimes when we would argue, he would bring it up and he would say, "Oh, well, you're not doing enough of this, or you're not cleaning enough, or you're not cooking enough." And it's like when they mention things like that, it's you know that it's unspoken. They just don't want to say it. Um, but yeah,
Okay, so your ex-husband was not from the same state that you are.
no.
Yeah. How did you guys meet?
Um, we met online on Facebook. No, no mutual friends whatsoever. I don't know how he found me, but he did, and he just DM'd me. And I remember this is like the corniest line ever. But it was he was just like, "Hey, what's up?" And I was like, "Nothing, the ceiling." And then he just thought that was so funny. And then I'm just like, "It's not really that funny, but okay." But yeah, it just started off like that.
Yeah, and did he ever make trips to come and visit you or you to him?
He did. It was mostly him making trips to me. And it's crazy because we had only been talking for a month, and I remember he told me that he was originally supposed to plan a trip to go see his ex-girlfriend, but they broke up, and bad things happen, blah blah blah. And then he met me, and then we talked for a month or two, and then he was like, "Okay, I'm gonna come see you. Like, I like you. I want to see you. You know, all that good stuff." And he just made me feel so safe and so secure and so well loved, because before him I was in a toxic relationship for 3 years too, and I had just recently broken up. And so I think we both kind of just like trauma bonded. And so yeah, like within a month and a half, he came to visit me. um and yeah, that's how it started.
Yeah, how long did you guys date before you guys ultimately decided to get married?
We dated for 6 months, and then we got married. And sorry, excuse the noise, but
You're okay.
yeah, we got married within 6 months. And I remember, and I still tell everybody who asks me this, I would have never done that. I It's just not who I am. It's not what I do. I was at a very I I wouldn't say very secure, very safe. I mean, because if I was, that this would never have happened. But I was at a point in my life where I had dreams and goals and I wanted to achieve them. But when I met him, it's like he made me feel so loved and so secure and so safe that I just fell head over heels. I did not see any of my goals. I did not see anything else ahead of me. I just said, this is who I want to be with. And so yeah, that's how it happened.
Now, I guess it's a little early to ask this question. It's a little early just because I know it takes time to,
Mhm.
reflect on the relationship, reflect on, everything that happens that led up to that point and learning from those mistakes or from those happenings. But do you think that like the way you were raised in the Hmong culture had anything to do with you getting into toxic relationships?
Um, I for sure, I believe 100%. Yes. And of course, that doesn't mean I am not holding myself accountable for my own actions. No, that's not the case at all. But we all know that factors in our childhood affects our life choices as adults, especially when you haven't healed from them. And that's exactly what happened to me. There was a lot of childhood trauma that I suppressed for a very long time, and it wasn't until my relationship with my ex got so toxic that it started resurfacing. And then I realized my reaction to everything that he did to me was not as an adult, like a safe, secure adult, but as a child who was still fighting for their life, fighting to be seen, to be loved, to survive. And so my I watched my mom get beaten every weekend by my dad. He was an alcoholic, and every time he did that, I remember as the oldest, all I could think of was, how do I mend this relationship? How do I maintain my parents' marriage so that we had parents? And just the other day, my sister was sharing to me how she remembers how she remembers it is her and all the other kids, they would go hide in the closet when my dad would come. It's like this big monster coming out, like the boogeyman, you know? And I would put them in the closet and then I would go out there and I would try to calm my parents down, calm my mom, calm my dad down. And I would just, sorry if I get emotional talking about this because it's a lot to unpack. I'm still working through it, but yes, he that's what he would do. And when he would be done beating my mom, I would have to take care of him because my mom would be hurt. She would be too busy taking care of herself. And I used to make him like this lime drink where it was just water and lime, and I would put towels on his head when he's like hungover. And I think that being the person that took care of him and trying to mend my parents' relationship, it allowed me to tolerate what I did or what I did tolerate in my marriage and a lot of toxic men in my life because I thought that was normal.
Now, you said the word was. Is your father still currently in your life, or has he since gone?
Um, he actually passed away when I was 11 from a brain aneurysm. And I genuinely believe it was because of all the alcohol consumption. And he had a lot of, you know, mental health issues and a lot of things that a lot of young men go through that we need to address as well and we need to fix because not only does it affect them and their self-esteem and their worth, it affects the young men and the women that are in their lives too. And so yeah, it took him. His alcoholism took him.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, by the way. I'm so sorry for your loss. That sounds awful. Yeah, your
Yeah.
childhood sounds like it was very rough and definitely very traumatizing. Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's a lot to take on. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Just, I'm gonna
Yeah.
process all of that. Oh my gosh.
It's okay. I apologize. I mean, it's just I figured, you know, we're here, we're gonna be speaking the truth. Might as well give you the raw truth. And this is a lot. This is something that a lot of people don't know about me. I don't think my in-laws or you know my brother-in-law or my sister-in-laws or anybody who knows me really knows this part about me because I don't particularly talk about it. I mean, I do talk a lot about my trauma and my experience to people just to help them, but I don't go into deep dive about everything that I've been through. And you know, I'm jumping the gun here, but like this is one of the main reasons why I decided to walk away from my marriage as well is because all of this that I'm speaking today is everything that I've ever told him and he still did not protect me. He still did not heal me. It's not that I expected him to heal all my trauma, but you understand what I mean? Like somebody who's gentle and kind and empathetic. And I did not get that. And I needed that.
Being the oldest daughter in your family, do you think that had any impact on your marriage or how you viewed it at the time?
Um, it definitely did. You know, growing up, I'm sure you have and everybody else has, where your parents always tell you, "Oh, you have to set an example for your younger siblings." And because my parents drilled that into me, I always strongly believed that I had to live up to my siblings' expectations. Um, and oftentimes I feel like I have failed them, like just failing my marriage, you know. I went through like a whole season of depression just thinking about that because I didn't want to disappoint them. But I ultimately came to the conclusion, along with validation from my siblings, that it would it would make them and it would make me so much happier if I were to leave an unhappy marriage than to stay in one for the rest of my life. It would be a better example that I am strong and brave enough to leave and know my own worth than to be with somebody who didn't. And because my siblings they validated that and you know I came to an understanding of that as well. I was able to leave. I was able to move on and you know want something better for myself.
Did your sorry, I'm backtracking here a little bit. Did your mom ever get remarried after your father passed away?
She did. Interesting enough, my dad now is actually my uncle. You know the hongke guy where yeah, the mua to a wife to marry the younger brother. Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Educational note. So in the Hmong culture, when somebody's husband passes away, right? And let's say that this husband has like three or four different brothers. So maybe an older one, maybe two younger ones. One of the younger ones is married, one of them is not married, he's still single. If the family chooses or they want to keep the wife within the family, they want to keep the children within the family, or they have like a wife that is a good wife and they don't want her to go and get married to any other last name, they will force the widowed wife to marry the younger single brother. So that's just food for thought.
That's exactly what happened. It was traumatizing on its own as well. It was hard to accept when it happened. I went through a phase, and I think we all did. All the older siblings, they went through a phase where we all just we all just hated our mom. We all just didn't understand her. As an adult now, I understand why she did what she did. It was the only way she knew that she could protect us and provide for us. Um, and yeah,
Girl,
yeah,
that is insane. Okay, like
yeah, it's insane. It's like you go from one trauma to the next. Literally, my life has just been full of trauma.
yeah, I definitely see that. Like, okay, so like when my late husband passed away, right? That's what
Uh-huh.
they tried to do. But
Oh,
luckily his girlfriend was there. His girlfriend showed up to the funeral, and so they were like, he's the only younger brother. So we're not gonna be able to like force you to marry him because his girlfriend is here and so like, and I was like, yeah, that's absolutely fine, but like it's absolutely crazy to me that a funeral that's supposed to be mourning somebody, right?
yes.
It's turned into this thing where people just force you upon another person, and that doesn't make any sense because
Yeah.
you're supposed to be mourning your son, you're supposed to be mourning your daughter. Actually, mostly sons, because I've never seen it where the wife passed away and then the son has to marry the younger sister. I've only seen it one
I'm
way.
pretty sure that's non-existent. I think it's only to like because from what I know, it's the tradition is done because they want to keep the children in the family. They want to keep the family name, and so it is much easier that way to just more the wife to the brother, whether it's the older brother or the younger brother, and you'd be surprised how many people still practice this. I had a friend who that happened to her when I was in college, and that's when I realized, wow, I am not alone in this. Like this happens. And it's a very interesting, very bizarre, very outdated practice. But I guess in my case it worked out okay. It didn't work out great, but it worked out okay.
Now, do they have any children together?
They do. My three younger siblings are with him, and I absolutely love them. We don't consider them our step sibling, but
Mhm.
yeah, three beautiful little children. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's lovely. I'm glad that like worked out for them and everything. But just thinking about the like the logical and the dynamic of it is insane to me because now like you have siblings that are literally your cousins and your siblings.
It is so bizarre, isn't it? It just yeah. I mean, I never thought about it that way just because I never see them as like it's been so long.
Mhm.
And I remember when my dad passed, all the elders said, "You need to call this person your dad." And I hated it, but I was so afraid of being yelled at. I was so afraid of, you know, the punishment. And so I just started calling him dad, even though it was so uncomfortable. And now I don't even see him as my uncle anymore. I just see him as my dad. And so those siblings of mine, they don't. It doesn't even cross my mind that they are basically my cousins. You know, they're just they're just the same as me.
How did that affect you as like a Hmong woman growing up, like seeing all of that happen? Did you ever have a moment when you were like, that's not fair?
Oh, the whole way, the whole ride, it was unfair. It was unfair to us children. It was unfair to my mom. It was unfair to my dad. It was unfair in general. But for me personally, growing up, I just didn't understand why. Because growing up, you learn that there are certain boundaries you don't cross, right? Like you don't date your own brother or your own sister, right? So what makes it okay for your mom to marry your uncle? And that was just hard to grasp, period. Yeah, it was hard. Hard calling him your dad, like immediately right after my dad passed. They did the wedding and everything, and it was just crazy.
Yeah, literally didn't give you guys any time to breathe
No.
at all. It just like you said, one after another. But
Mhm.
your him becoming your stepdad, did he treat you guys, would you say better or worse than your previous dad did?
Um, well, they were brothers, so they both had a lot of childhood trauma growing up that they weren't aware of. But their problems were a little bit different. My dad took it out on alcohol, and he used that as his way. And my dad now, he's not a very social person. He keeps to himself, and that's how he copes. Is he just bottles it in, um, and he did. But I guess the good thing, it's not great, but the good thing is he never laid a hand on my mom. And when they argued in private. And I think that was really relieving from my mom. Us as kids, we didn't really understand. There are things that happen when we were kids that I don't really want to talk too much about. But for my mom, I think about for my mom, it was better for her.
Okay, so the view of the home culture, especially like with your mom going through all of that,
Hmm.
did they ever have like, I guess, clan meetings where they spoke to your mom about all of the problems? Did your mom ever like try to get divorced or try to leave? And if she didn't, like, why do you think that is?
It's funny that you mentioned that because I had a conversation with her about a month ago. I believe it's a month ago, fairly recent. And I asked her, I was like, because I'm going through a divorce and all that, and I asked her, what was going through your mind? Why didn't you leave dad? He hit you so many times. We saw that and we hurt, like all of us, we were hurting for you. Why didn't you leave? And she said, to be honest, the month before your dad passed, I was planning to leave, but it didn't happen. And then your dad just passed. And when I heard that, I was shocked because I never thought she would have ever left. I didn't realize that my mother was that strong because I mean, I always knew that she was strong, but I never realized that she would leave a marriage because growing up, I've always seen her just go above and beyond to take care of her family, above and beyond to take care of her husband. And I thought that was what I was supposed to do. And had she told me that, I think I would have had the courage to leave much longer than I did. Because part of the reason why I stayed for as long as I did in my marriage is because I thought I was supposed to wash and date. I was supposed to just love him no matter what.
Yeah, so seeing that from that point of view, I can definitely see how that misconstrues your, I guess, like
Yeah.
your vision of like marriage and what it's supposed to be. Now, being a child of the product of trauma, basically, is what I would describe our parents' relationship. We all know the truth. We all know the truth. We've lived through that. Being and I guess this part right here is for the mothers out there, or for the women out there who are currently like debating if they want to leave or not. Being the child, right, of the product of trauma between the two people that raised you, do you wish, like now as an adult, do you wish that your mother would have left sooner so maybe all of that trauma didn't happen to you?
Yes. I mean, I used to have this thought where I said, it could be worse. I used to tell myself it could have been worse. She could have married somebody who was far worse than my dad. She could have married somebody who would have done bad things to us. But the thing about that is it's just what ifs. What if she did marry somebody better? What if she did find somebody who did love her? When did I start thinking about just the bad things and not think about the good things? And I kind of use that for my own marriage. I used to think, well, what if there's nobody better? What if I meet another guy, another person, and they don't love me as much as he does, and I end up regretting it for the rest of my life because I don't want to live life in regret. And eventually, I realized, no, there is always better, but you have to choose better. It starts with you.
Yeah, that's I guess that's comforting to me too, what you just said, because that honestly, like 10 years of abuse, I wish that I could talk to the adult version of my kids, because
Yes,
maybe that would have given me the strength to leave sooner. But that was definitely very comforting. And I hope that the mothers out there who are going through it, who are, suffering through trauma after trauma after trauma and being treated like they're nothing, I hope when they hear this, they hear it from the adult child perspective, and
yeah,
maybe that'll help them make a decision to do better for themselves and for their children. Yeah, but
yeah,
it's finding that strength, and I absolutely love that. Thank you so much for that
yeah, of
insight.
course. Yeah. I used to think if I wasn't born, maybe my mom would have had a better life. And it's because she married young. And of course, that was a choice that they both made. It wasn't like it was my choice, but she had me very young. And probably, I think it was immediately after they got married. And so she never got the chance to live like a child. She never got the chance to create a life for herself. All of a sudden, she's a mother. And I always felt like if she didn't have me, maybe she would be happier. Maybe she would live a life of happiness. And that's why I believe that if you don't leave a bad marriage for yourself, do it for your children. Don't don't get involved with the idea of at least they have a father. Because if you're already doing this on your own, if you're already providing on your own, what's the point of having a extra weight?
Hmm.
In in America, having a dad, it doesn't have the same amount of weight that it used to. It doesn't mean anything anymore. And so, that's what we need to focus on. That's what we need to think about as women. That I have my kids, I'm doing this for my children.
Absolutely. That was definitely, I completely agree with that. That was definitely a hard lesson for me to learn as well, like what you just said, because that word, I swear, I hate that word when
Mhm.
they say at least.
Yes.
Right? At least you're not this. At least you're not that. And I used to say that to myself all the time. At
Mhm.
least you're not single. At least you don't have to do this by yourself. At least they have a father. And now that I'm on the other side of it, I look back and I'm like, what about at most?
Yes, exactly.
What about at most? And so when I hear people say, at least I'm not doing this, I'll look at them and I'm like, what about at most? Do I only get bare minimum? Am I only worth at least?
Right, exactly. You're worth so much more, but you have to believe it. You have to change your perspective and see I strongly believe that in order for a person to have vision to see beyond, they they have to have the will to do that. And oftentimes people aren't built to have that. But if you're surrounded by people who have vision, eventually that door is going to open. Eventually you're going to see that there is possibility, that there is more.
Yeah. And I absolutely love that. I appreciate your insight. Like, this is a really interesting conversation.
Thank you.
Right. So, I guess being a divorcee, like, how do you feel like divorcees are treated in the home community, and what have you witnessed yourself?
Um I think it affects women a lot more than it does men, negatively, at least. From what I've seen, I can't speak on everybody else's experience, but from my experience, from what I've seen, typically for the men, it's like, it's okay. We'll buy you another one, you know? It's we're just kind of like a product and men can just go to a supermarket and choose. But for women, we're like rotting fruit. We're like stale fruit. We don't get picked because we've got scars. We've got, dents, all these things. And so typically when you tell people that you have been married before or, this is what happened, they don't ask you, "Oh, why? What happened? Are you okay? Did it hurt? What did you go through?" It's always, "Hmm, you must have done something. You must have said something. You must have not done something enough." And I never thought I was gonna be a divorcee, but I've seen my aunts go through it, and I remember when one of my aunts, she went through divorce, she came back, and my uncles, they called her a whore, a slut, all of the names, and I remember thinking, "Why? She's not a slut, she's not a whore, she's it was a bad marriage, and I was just a kid, and I knew that, and I didn't understand, this is your sister. Why do you call her that? Why do you treat her that way? What happened? Before she married, before she, Tolalumbe, she was human to you. What happened? Did her existence just not matter anymore?" And that's why I told myself, if that were ever to happen to me, I need to know that I have a good foundation to come back to. And luckily and thankfully, I do. All my siblings are amazing and they're so sweet and so kind to me through this whole entire journey. But I look at women like that where they don't have that and they come home and people just tell them, "You're not good enough anymore. You're just used product."
Yeah, that makes me so sad. That makes me so sad. I was literally talking about that earlier with my husband.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was telling him that, like, it's so sad. It's so sad that, like, when you get married, your parents literally look you in the face and say, "个人才过了."
Yes.
From now on, when you come over, you're no longer my daughter. You are a guest from outside of my house. And I know that when my uncles and my parents said that to me, it broke my heart
Yes.
because I guess, like, abandonment issues. You know what I mean? You were supposed to protect me. You were supposed to be there for me. But now that I'm getting married and I've done nothing wrong to you, you're telling me that. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And it makes me so sad to think about it. But
Yeah, that actually brings up a memory of mine. I remember when my ex, we were living in an apartment and we got into this big fight because of something that happened, and he kicked me out of the apartment, and I walked off crying, and I called my mom and my dad, and all they said to me was, "Well, we have to take the proper Hmong steps. We need to call your father-in-law." And I'm just like, "Why do we need to do that? I just want you guys to come pick me up. I just need you right now. I need my parents. I need my mom. I need a shoulder to cry on." I don't need take it, I don't need to, speak about my issues with, my in-laws and have them deal with it. This is just a problem between me and him. And then I called my uncle and then they said, well, we need to talk to your parents first on what to do. And that's when I realized you really are you really are an outsider. You don't matter to them according to the culture anymore. And I learned now because my mom opened up about it and she told me that that day she wanted to, that if she could, she would have. And I told her, nothing stopped you. Had you just listened to your gut, listened to your heart, instead of trying so hard to, you know, live the old Hmong way, you would have been able to protect your daughter. And maybe today I wouldn't have waited 5 long years to divorce. I would have done it there and then. Who knows, you know? But
Yeah.
it just brings back to a point that I wanted to make, which is advocate for your daughters. Whether you're a man or a woman, if you have a daughter, advocate for her. Because if you don't, nobody else will.
Yeah, I also think like, the reason that you're saying right now, the feeling of like I'm no longer protected by my parents, nobody's going to advocate for me. I think that's the reason why like Hmong women have adopted such a masculine energy in
Yes,
themselves.
100%.
So we hear a lot talking nowadays about like masculine energy and like, you're a woman and you're not supposed to have that kind of energy. When a man exemplifies that he has that energy already,
Yes,
you naturally submit. Like you as like a perfect example, because nobody exemplified that for you, nobody protected you, you decided to advocate and protect yourself
exactly.
because nobody's coming to save you.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
Yep.
when you have to be your own superhero, I guess be masculine. I don't know.
Right. We'll be the man. We'll wear the pants.
Yeah. And then when did you first realize that like your marriage was going downhill? What were the first signs?
Um, this is funny because I noticed immediately. I wouldn't say I'm self-aware. But I'm really good at reading people, and I'm really good at knowing whether something's gonna work out or not. And I think it was like a year into our marriage, maybe even less. There were just signs, and I knew, but I was so convinced that this was the right choice. It's a pride thing. Don't let pride keep you, okay? Um, that's my PSA to everybody. Don't let pride keep you. I was prideful. I did not want to be wrong about him. I made a mistake before. I did not want to be wrong. And so I stayed and I tried to mend it and I used every inch of me to make it better. And in the end, it was just draining. Um, but like moments like when I caught him, it was a year and a half into our marriage. I caught him texting his ex in the middle of the night, and then he worked third shift, so when he went on break he would call her, and that's when I would be sleeping. And when I found that out, I had severe anxiety, trust issues, all of it. And it was just awful for me mentally. And I just it completely destroyed me, because I never knew if he was lying to me or not, because he is a pathological liar, and so he lies about everything, and I had to really learn to pick and choose what was the truth and what wasn't, and 90% of the time they were lies.
Okay. And what stopped you from leaving that first time that you found that?
Um, his parents, my love for his parents, my love for his family. I think 90% of the time, the only reason why, not 90, more like 70%. Um, 70% of the time, it was me thinking about them, me thinking about how can I possibly leave his younger siblings when I've built so much connection with them, when I've loved them so much, poured so much energy into them. His parents, because they loved us so much, they didn't let us struggle. They didn't. I felt like I owed so much to them, and I couldn't just leave. and I didn't want to leave because I wanted to maintain that connection. And so part of me allowed his behavior because I just did not want to lose the connection I had with them.
All right. And I guess going back to your in-laws, just to clarify, because I guess getting married into different backgrounds within like a Hmong family, I guess it kind of like sets the tone for how your marriage is gonna be. Did you get married into another shaman family or into a Christian family?
No, they were Christian, and that's how I got exposed to Christianity. And um, his grandma is one of the biggest reasons why I still go to church and I still believe is because I told him this once before. She is the reason why. She's one of the main reasons why I chose to marry you is because of, you know, her big heart and her kindness and her talkativeness, if that's a word. She talks a lot, but she always means well.
Yeah, I absolutely love that though.
Mhm.
You, so that was the first time that that happened, and I'm sure there were multiple times after that. And you don't have to get into those if you don't want to. You stayed for 5 years, though. That's
Yeah.
5 years of your life, man.
Yeah.
How, I mean, looking back and reflecting back on all the things that you went through, when did you think, like now looking back, when did you pinpoint, like, yeah, I should have left him right then and there? Like, I shouldn't have stayed for that moment. When was that moment for you?
Um, Definitely the first time that I found out that he cheated, but I think deep down I wasn't ready to let go of him yet. I knew I should have, but I wasn't ready. But I think the real moment that I knew I didn't love him anymore, that I was just in love with what he could be, it's funny because it was when we moved back here so that I could finish school. And we went back to Florida for vacation. And that night we argued. I don't even know what, but I walked out and I went and sat on the beach and for hours. And I just processed through everything I've ever went through, all the emotions and everything he's ever said to me that hurt me. And I cried like a baby because I realized in that moment that I did not love him anymore. That everything that he is, I don't even recognize anymore. It's not the man I fell in love with.
Yeah.
And thinking about it was such a bittersweet moment because I wasn't just crying because I didn't love him anymore, but I was crying because I still wanted to love him. I still wanted to be with him, but I knew. And so in a way I was crying because I didn't love him anymore, but crying because I don't love him anymore. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's definitely a grieving process. And I think that's what a lot of divorcees go through
Mhm.
during, I guess, like all of what you went through. So here, that first thought, right, sparked
Mhm.
that moment, that movement into getting a divorce and getting out of a toxic relationship is what it sounds like. Um, did you ever express that to anybody? Like, were you vocal about it?
Yes. I'm a very vocal person. I'm very expressive of my emotions, and so I have voiced it to him multiple times. I've voiced it to my siblings. I've talked about it with my friends, but I've never really brought it up to his parents because I knew that if I did, it would mean this is it. And I remember, I think it was like the third year, I brought it up. I brought it up to his dad, and his dad was not happy because they also don't believe in divorce. Um, but nothing really came out of it. We didn't really talk about it. And then it was a month or two before I finally left that I brought it up, and this is what he said to me. Don't quote me on this because it's not exactly what he said, but what he said basically was he was working from home. So he said, I'm busy. I don't have time for this. Why don't you go rest? And when you wake up, we can talk about it. And I was crying and I was upset and I had mentioned it and I just felt like I was not heard. Like it didn't matter. My marriage was falling apart and I needed them to hear me and they didn't. And that's when I realized it doesn't matter how many times I tell you, you're not going to hear me, you're not going to listen. Nothing will matter. Nothing will be fixed. A month later, I left.
What So that last conversation that you had with him, what sparked that? What was the reason why you were like, you know what, I'm done. This is it. I'm getting out of here. What was that last moment?
So, it was a series of events, like about a month and a half of events that happened that led to that point. I was already done. I was already emotionally drained. I was I was finding just the smallest reason to stay, just the last string of hope. And it was his birthday, and he had gone to Florida for his birthday, and we said no friends. We said no, nobody's gonna go with us. It's just gonna be the two of us. He ended up telling his friends, and his friends ended up accidentally booking a trip on the same weekend at the same hotel. And so they were there with us the whole time, which, no hate to his friends or what not, but it was as if he planned it. And I was just like, you know what, it's fine. It's your birthday. If you want to spend it that way, that's fine. But I was really hoping that it would just be the two of us. And 2 weeks before his actual birthday, and for his actual birthday, he planned it with his friends, and we both worked the same shift and the same at the same place during that time. So even though we saw each other at work, we barely had time to do anything together because on his days off, he would be out with his friends doing things, and so we barely saw each other. And I need some time with you. I want some time with you. I need you to make time for me. And he always told me, okay, I will, but he never did. And that weekend he went with his friends to go camping, and he came back and he was like, I'm sorry, I'll make time for you. Then following weekend, he went hunting, and I realized I was asking for a bare minimum. This guy was not giving it to me. And I specifically told him, if you don't make time for me, we're going to argue. I gave him time. I spoke how I felt, told him exactly what was going to happen. He said, okay, I'll make it work. Never did. And it was little moments like that. And so we finally had that big fight that I told him about, because all of this is just repetition. I already know what's coming. Um, and so we fought, and he went out again. And I sat at home contemplating about my life, thinking about what I want to do. And then he came home that night. He apologized, and it seemed like we were good, but we really weren't. And that morning, we got up, we cooked breakfast together, and then I asked him, "Can you do the dishes?" And he said, "No, I don't want to." And prior to that conversation, we had a fight, and he said this is what he said to me. He said, "You always rely on me. You always need me to do everything for you. I'm tired of it." And so I took that to heart. And so that morning I said, you know what? If you don't want to do dishes, it's fine. I'll do them. So I went and did the dishes, and then he came over and he wanted to help, and I said, "No, I don't need your help because you specifically said you didn't want to." Well, he got mad, stormed off, and said it was just a joke. But if that's how you want to be, fine. So he left, went downstairs, and stayed on his phone the whole entire time. And I came down, and he didn't speak to me or anything like that. And then he went back to bed. And it really upset me because even though you're the one who didn't make time for me, you're the one who didn't want to do dishes, you're the one who I had to force you to do everything with me. You're mad at me? How how does that make sense? And so we argued, of course, and then he just he looks me in the eyes and he just with these dead eyes and he said to me, "Why don't you just shut the fuck up?" Am I allowed to say that?
It is what it is. Yeah, you're good.
He said, "Why don't you just shut the fuck up, like, and stop yapping like a little bitch, like that bitch over there?" And then he pointed to my dog, and I I just stopped. I went to the bathroom. I wiped my tears, and that's when it hit me, and I was so angry, and I was like, "Why am I letting him talk to me?" Like, so I went over there, and I wanted to fight a little bit more, and he just he just didn't care, and I wanted a reaction, and this is horrible of me, but I wanted a reaction, and I was so angry over the past month that it's as if I blacked out, and I punched him in the arm so hard, and when I did that, I realized I'm becoming the monster that I fear, and I stepped back, calmed down, wiped my tears, and I apologized to him, and I said, "I am so sorry for hitting you, because I don't condone abuse at all. That's not who I wanna be, that's not what I wanna be." But I had so much pent-up energy, so much pent-up anger, so much sadness that I took the wrong way of doing it, and so I apologized, wiped my tears, packed my things, and while I'm packing my things, he left. Who knows where he went? He left, and I left, and I drove 12 hours and left.
Okay, so that was the. Sorry, I'm processing everything. That's a lot.
Yeah.
But man, I can definitely see where the childhood trauma came out. I can
Yeah,
definitely see where those learned behaviors
yeah.
came out and took over you. And that's just, yeah, that's a lot to take on. So you said that you drove 12 hours home
Mhm.
to where your parents were. That was, you never went back to stay with him after that, did you?
No, I didn't. I said, "I'm only gonna do this trip once. I'm not doing it again." So, I haven't been back since.
You showed up at your parents' house, and then how long was it that you stayed with them until they were like, "Hey, we're gonna need to call, his people and discuss what happened."
If I remember correctly, I think it was only, like, a couple of days, and then, his dad called, and his dad was like, "Oh, did she make it there? What's going on?" And so my dad just gave him a brief explanation of what happened and said that, "Yeah, my Maider's here, and she said she's not coming back," and all that, and so, it was just a conversation between, my father-in-law and my dad, and, after that conversation, after my dad told him that I am set on not coming back, nothing really happened afterwards. She saw or they didn't say anything to my dad, and then my dad hasn't said anything to them, and so, we kind of just agreed mutually, unspoken, that we would just handle it the American way. Because my ex and I, we got married legally, and so we would just do it through that.
Okay. All right. So did you guys already get divorced through courts and everything like that?
No, we are in the process of that. You gotta wait 6 months to, actually file, so we have to do that 6 months separation.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Um, that's really interesting. Yeah, because I think in the state of North Carolina, you have to wait like 12 months or something like that, unless it's
What?
like a no contest. Yeah, unless it's like a no contest. And like, one of my siblings is currently going through that right now, and she just
Mhm.
went to go and sign her divorce papers the other day, and she was like, she thought she was good. She thought she was over it, but she saw everything and she went through everything, and now she's like officially divorced. But I don't know, she was just so overwhelmed with emotions. Like, how are you preparing for that moment?
Um, there is no preparation, honestly. I can tell myself to be strong. I can write it in my journal, can talk to my therapist about it as much as I want, but it doesn't change the fact that I still feel those feelings and they still come whenever they want to. You don't get any control whatsoever over it. Um, the research that I've done, it says 6 months, but honestly, if there's um, any attorney, any lawyer out there that knows that we can do this uncontested divorce sooner, by all means, let me know because I would like to get it over and done with as soon as possible. But the emotions, yeah, there's no preparing it. You have to feel all of it. You have to let it all in. Don't like my mom, she doesn't really show her emotions, and my sister's like that, and they keep telling me don't write these crazy posts online. Don't think about him. Don't this and that. And it's like, it's so easy for you guys to say that, but that's not how it works. You have to feel everything in order to heal from it. You cannot pretend that it's not there and that because that's exactly what happens with trauma. If it's not unlearned, it just continues to manifest. And that is not what I want to do. I want to heal completely and I want to be a better person. I don't want to hold on to him, whether it's negative or positive emotions. I just want it where there's just absolutely nothing left.
Yeah, how are you currently coping with that though? Like all of the emotions and everything like that. Are there some coping skills that you can kind of give out, to women who are currently going through what you're going through?
I definitely recommend getting a journal because it is very important that you process through everything that you're feeling and you write about it because understand what you were going through. Um, I used to just think about it a lot, but then it just creates this ruminating where you just think you don't actually process it. You don't actually understand what you're going through. So I definitely recommend journaling, um, reading self-help books or books that, help you understand yourself a little bit more. That definitely helps too. Surround yourself with loving people, people who share the same vision as you, people who love you and care for you and see your worth. Definitely surround yourself with people like that. It is important that you surround yourself with good friends, good, trusting friends.
Yeah, that's definitely some good advice. And then words of comfort, I guess, for divorcees or, going to be divorcees who's contemplating and everything. What are your words of comfort for these women?
Um, this is something that I tell myself at the end of every journal entry, and I hope this, you know, finds whoever well. And it is give yourself grace. Be kind to yourself because what you couldn't forgive or what you went through, what you took too long to realize, it's okay. It's okay to take a little bit longer. Everybody has their own journey. Everybody, eventually they get there. But you have to give yourself grace. You have to forgive yourself. You have to love yourself. And if you don't heal.
Hmm, that's good. I think women out there need to hear that.
Yeah.
So, you were talking about how your mom and your, sister were telling you like don't be posting this stuff online and all that stuff. But what inspired you to start posting these things online?
Honestly, at first it was just for myself so that I could go back and, reread them. It's kind of like a journal entry, but for everybody to see. And then I realized, am I really doing this for myself or am I doing it for clout? And so I kind of stopped, but it's not. But then I also realized there are so many women out there that are like me, if not going through something much worse, that needed to hear that. I've had many women reached out to me and they said, "You're so strong, you're so brave. I don't know if I could ever." And I tell them, "Yes, you can. but it's only if you want it bad enough. If you really love yourself, if you really want a better life, because there is better out there, you have to be willing to do it. And this journey is really lonely and it's really sad sometimes, but it's not sad all the time. And it's far more rewarding than it is to be with somebody who only gives you 5% of what you deserve.
And then to that first night that you were alone, that you were finally by yourself, what were the thoughts that went through your mind that first night?
I was going crazy. I wanted to contact him. I wanted him to know that I was safe. I wanted him to comfort me. I wanted him to tell me, come back. I wanted him to say, I still love you. I still want you. I wanted him to just want me, but he didn't. He he said, you need to come home now. This is ridiculous. It wasn't him begging for me. It wasn't him comforting me. It was him telling me, you're stupid for doing this. Come back. It's as if he expected me to just come crawling back. And for the women who thought the same that I did, hear me on this. They don't care. They will say because you are not if somebody really loves you, you're not property. You're not somebody who they can just toss to the side. They will comfort you. They will do whatever it takes to have you back. He didn't. He just said he just expected me to come back. He didn't even say, I'll come get you. He said, you need to drive your ass back.
And when he said those things to you, like, how did you feel?
It brought me back to the moment where I felt like I can't be there. I can't go back. And I didn't even have to do that myself. I didn't really have to tell myself or talk myself into leaving. He was doing it already. He was already making it so much easier. I just had to listen. Like I said, it just they do it themselves. They confirm over and over again the reasons why you leave, the reasons why you want better. You don't even have to do it yourself. About a couple weeks ago, he actually no, just last week, he messaged me saying that he wanted me back, but that's all he said. Not an apology, not a, I know I hurt you, nothing. There's just no respect. If you truly respected me, you would have never asked for me back after everything you said to me, after everything you've done. But it's an ego thing for men. They believe that they can get you back and they're just gonna say whatever and do whatever, but they don't actually mean it. And so take things as face value. Just see them as they are, not what they could be, not what ifs or what nots, just as is. See them as they are. And it'll be a lot easier when you do.
I heard a saying once, if somebody shows you who they are, believe them.
Mm-hmm.
That's,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
that's who they really are, people. And that goes for men and women. If they show
Yep.
you that that's who they really are, you best believe that that's who they really are.
Yep. Exactly.
Right. And then mental health. When you were going through all of this stuff, like, did you ever have challenges with mental health and like suicidal thoughts or like, feeling insignificant and all of that? And what were those moments like and how did you overcome those moments?
Oh, for sure. Every moment. I I struggled a lot with depression and self-doubt and imposter syndrome, all of it. Um,
Oh, wait. Imposter syndrome. Can you describe what that is?
it's when you feel like you're not good enough at something, and you're just like it says itself. You're an imposter. Like you could be so good at art, and everybody tells you you're good enough, but you yourself you feel like you're not, and you're just not good enough and you can't do enough, and then it kind of stops you from being able to achieve what you want. That's basically how I felt because I wasn't getting the support that I needed. I wasn't getting the encouragement I need because as much as it is your responsibility to take care of yourself and to build yourself up. It is, for example, if we're doing numbers, it's 60% yours and it's 40% everybody else around you. If you surround yourself with an environment that is supportive, that gives you 100%, and you can focus on what you want. But the work, it's an environmental thing. It's a community thing. And if we don't have that community, because as humans, we're social animals, we can't thrive on our own. We have to thrive with each other. And so if we don't support each other, there's no way that us as human beings can survive. And so for me, I did not have the environment where I could grow. I didn't have the people that believed in me, the people that would allow me to thrive. And so I was doing 60% of the work, but the 40% wasn't working. So I could not be 100%. And so yeah, I struggled a lot with depression. At one point, I was suicidal, and try I did try to, try certain methods to hurt myself. And every single time I was in that dark spot, it wasn't my it wasn't my ex who pulled me out. It was my family. It was my friends. It was me telling myself, you are more than this. You are better than this. And eventually I realized, why do I need to be with him? Why am I here? Why go through all this when this man clearly could watch me die and be okay with it? And a part of that allowed me to make the ultimate decision to leave.
But during those moments of like depression and periodic, self-harm, what so your friends and everybody pulled you out of that. Like, did you reach out to them for them to like kind of help you maneuver through this, or was it like a support group where they just kind of reached out to you because they felt like something was wrong with you?
It's a little bit of both. For my family, I always reach out to them about everything, talk to them about that. Me and my siblings, we're all very close because we all have shared trauma, and so we kind of know what each other's going through. But I have a best friend who is just simply amazing, and it's like she's literally my soulmate. I am so grateful that, God sent me her, because if not for her, there are many times where I really would have just given up. And it's like she just knew. I didn't even have to tell her. And we were like 12 hours away from each other. Some days she just texted me and she just says, "It feels like something's been going on. Can you talk to me about it?" And she'll be right on the dot. And not everybody's going to be able to find a friend or somebody like that where they just know. So my point here is, you have to talk about it. You have to open up. You have to tell somebody what you're going through. And when I say that, I don't just mean anybody, somebody you trust. And if you don't have that, you should start building that, because when you're in your darkest moments, it's people who care about you, people who genuinely love you, that are going to pull you out. And oftentimes people lose that battle because they have no one like that. Which also brings me to another point. Be kind to people. Be caring. Just ask the hard questions. And if they don't want to answer, that's okay. But you have to be the one to take initiative and to care. And it doesn't take that much effort.
That's so beautiful. Sorry. Hold my tears back. I'm
Sorry,
strong.
I didn't mean to preach.
No,
I
sure.
really genuinely believe that the cure to depression is to just be kind to one another.
Yeah, and I can definitely agree with that, because you never know what somebody's going through. And if, I don't know, the benefit of the doubt thing, I don't give people the benefit of the doubt anymore, but
Mhm.
I do know that I have a choice. So
Yes.
a lot of this depression I think that's going on right now within our community is thinking that they don't have a choice. Like, I have to do this. I have to be the man of the house. I have to be the perfect wife. I have to be the perfect daughter. So many expectations, without understanding where somebody is coming from. I think that's causing a lot of it as well. And I think that if we band together and, like you said, be kind to one another, be understanding, and be there, be present, I think that would fix a lot of problems around the world, and not just within our community, to other people as well.
Yes.
And growth. So growth, from when you got divorced to now. I understand it's been a couple months since you've gotten divorced, and you have been posting up a lot of motivational posts and everything like that. How do you see that you've grown since you left to now?
Um, I feel like I definitely grew a lot. Definitely not to where I want to be yet, but just seeing myself months ago compared to now, it has completely changed, and it amazes me honestly that I am capable of all this. I mean, it amazes me, but at the same time, it doesn't, because I always knew I had it in me, but it's as if I forgot. Like somebody just wiped my memories clean, and now I remember, and I realize just how amazing I am. And yeah, I would say my growth has been pretty great. Not where I want to be yet, but it's a work in progress.
Yeah. And I know this doesn't happen right off the bat, but like, do you have an example of your growth? Like, is there something that is not tangible, something you can touch, something you can see, something you can feel, or even like a mindset shift that you've noticed differently from when you left your relationship to now?
Mhm. Um, there's a few things like I used to be I used to be so angry, and I thought I was an angry person, and then I realized I was just hurt. I don't get angry at the things that I used to anymore. Now that I'm away from that toxic environment, I don't talk the same way anymore. I used to just stay quiet, or I just used to speak gently. I still do, but like much more firm now. I know this is how I feel, and I know this is what I want. I immediately, when I came here, I found a job that I absolutely love, and the people that I work with, they're absolutely amazing, and that shows me that this is exactly where I'm meant to be. Um, and I guess something that you can hold or grasp or actually see. Um, I started working out, not to like, look good or like get back at my ex or anything like that. No, I wanted a lifestyle change. I wanted to eat better, look healthier, do better, because when I was with my ex, I was so stressed, and I was living with so much anxiety that it affected me physically. I started growing like dark hairs right here, and I started having severe acne right here, which is typically due to excessive hormone. And I would get extremely irregular periods where it would last for a whole month or whatnot, and I was just exhausted all the time. I started working out, started eating better. None of this is here anymore. I have regular periods now, and it's just that was one of those really, really big changes that I saw, is that physically I was not doing good. And now I am doing and looking so much better.
Yeah. So getting the physical part right helps the mental part get
Yes.
right.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So for anybody who's kind of like going through depression and whatnot, get up,
Mhm.
get outside, go walk, get some vitamin D
Yes.
from the sun. Yeah.
Yep. Working out is not it does not mean you have to go and hit the gym every single day for like 2 hours. No. It could just simply be walking for 20 minutes out in the sun, or it could just mean going to the gym and, walking on the treadmill, because working out just it helps you mentally. And if you're like me and you go to the gym and you listen to Linkin Park
Mhm.
and you just run and you just cry it out in your head, by all means, you unleash something there, and it's better than unleashing it onto someone else who doesn't deserve it.
So when you were still here in Georgia, when I got married, you baked my cake.
I
So
did.
anybody out there, she makes amazing cakes. They taste great. They
Thank you.
look pretty. Yeah, and it was exactly what I wanted. You know, it was well worth it. I think you definitely undercharged for your cake. I should have paid you more.
I'll be honest, at that time I did, but it's because I was just starting out new, and it was my first three-tier wedding cake, and so I was just like, you know what? First try, let's just do it. And so yeah, but I appreciate that.
Yeah, but cakes, I remember you posting up like almost every week about like a different cake that you made or like the different things that you made. And I actually post up some pictures of your stuff because, you know, you did really good.
Thank you.
Are you still currently pursuing that now?
As of right now, I am not. I am I am pursuing old dreams that I had prior to getting married. Dreams that I thought was gone, was lost, and they're kind of resurfacing, and I'm working towards that. I think me baking really was just, I mean, of course, it's a passion of mine. Of course, I want to continue doing it later on in the future. But as of right now, I think the reason why I did it is just to keep myself distracted,
Hmm.
to keep myself busy so that I didn't have to think about my crazy marriage at that time. And so it allowed me to create because my marriage, I wasn't able to create anything. So I was creating through baking.
Oh, I absolutely love that. So it just, I guess it showed, right? That your cakes that you made, it showed the beauty, you know, and the inspiration and the ambition that you really had on the inside, all of that like pent up uh,
Yeah.
potential, you know, and it blossomed into these beautiful like decorations on your cakes and this. And I really love that though, that you
Mhm.
had an artistic outlet for all of the negativity in your life. So, you know, I think a lot of the times among women, you know, among women and some men, they do that as well. And it's quite sad, but it's beautiful all at the same time.
I actually really appreciate you saying that because I never would have really thought about that, but it makes so much sense because now that I'm gone from that environment, now that I'm gone from him, I realize I have so much more potential, like so much more. It's crazy. And this is not me being overly arrogant or cocky. No, I have always been somebody who strives to learn, whether it's a skill or knowledge about certain things. And I stopped doing that. I stopped learning. I stopped creating when all my energy was just focused on trying to make this marriage work. And that should never have been the case for either of us. He was allowed to continue to create. He was allowed to continue to do what he loved, but I was just too busy working behind the closed doors, trying to fix everything so that he could live this life. And nothing was being poured into me. And when I started pouring for myself, I realized I'm really good at being detail oriented. I actually have the skills to be a leader. I've been told that I have the skills to be a leader, but I've just been walking behind somebody's shadow this whole entire time. And so, to everybody who listens, to all the women that listen, don't sell yourself short. You're actually much more amazing than you think. Don't let people, small minded people, people without vision in your life tell you who can be and who you cannot be. Because I thought that I fit into this tiny little box that they put me in, that I was supposed to just be, I should just settle. I should just be happy with being a nya, being a wife, eventually having children. But I knew deep down that's not all that I am. It's only part of it. So don't settle.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, I can relate. I can relate.
Yeah, right. I think a lot of us can.
Yeah. Just I guess like the ambition part of it, you know, because we're told to dumb it down, dim your light,
Yes.
don't do this, don't do that, don't say this, don't speak your mind. And I can tell you that I guess like my ex in-laws or like the in-laws of my late husband, um,
Mhm.
that was probably one of the reasons why they didn't like me too much because I was very vocal. very
Mhm.
opinionated, and I'm still very opinionated now. But my current husband, he just supports that so much
Yes.
more, you know. And um, rumors, it happens all the time. People always go through rumors, whether you're good, whether you're bad, whether you're doing something, whether you're not doing something. It's always there. Have you heard rumors about yourself? And when you hear these rumors, like, how does it make you feel?
Fortunately, I haven't heard any rumors about me. Probably because I live like a whole on the other side of, the country of him.
Mhm.
And so, it doesn't affect me. And the fact that my parents, they don't go out much, not the community doesn't really know them. So there's not much talk. And if there is, it's probably gonna take a little while for it to get to my ears. But I can't say the same for him because his family is well known in the community. They've lived in that state for a long time. They've built themselves there. And so I'm sure that if not him, his parents, they have heard certain things being said, all that good stuff. But for me, I haven't heard anything. And if there is a rumor, believe it. I'm not
Mhm.
gonna sit here and explain myself. I've done plenty of that while I was married to him. Not anymore. I am my own person, and that is good enough for me.
Mhm. And that was a very strong statement. I hope other women out there will hear this, and they'll find the strength within themselves to be truly them as well. I'd really love to get like a divorced male on here just to kind of see like their aspect, what they kind of went through,
Yeah,
how they view it like differently. You know what I mean? Because I think that would be good to hear from a man's perspective. Because I'm biased. I'm biased as hell because I'm a woman.
I was gonna say too, I'm pretty biased, but it would be great to hear a man's perspective because who knows, these unspoken expectations on them, that has to be exhausting, and to be the sole provider, or to be expected to be the sole provider, and then when you're not good enough at that, what goes through your mind? Like that is also just as important and as it is for women who are going through, I'm not good enough, because
Mhm.
we all go through the I'm not good enough phase where we feel like we're just not there. And it's good to know that you're not alone, whether you're a guy or a girl.
So definitely going to be working towards that. Like, hey, shout out, if you have a story that you kind of want to tell, come on through. We're open. We're open.
Right.
We're not trying to like bash on the men in our community. We're just saying that there's a problem and we kind of have to talk about it to fix it. And this is how we
We
kind of fix that.
we are holding you accountable. That's all
Mhm.
we're doing.
Yeah.
It may suck, but it'll make you a better person. Trust me.
Yeah. I think it'll be better for the rest of us too, just to kind of see like the
Yes.
perspective and everything like that. I think that's very interesting. And I just sorry guys. I want to pick your brains. Okay, that's what I want to do.
Mhm.
I want to know all the little nitty gritty stuff. And it's not because like I'm trying to form a hypothesis about you or, I'm trying to form a personality and pin it on you. I just honestly want to know for educational purposes. Like,
Yes,
is this
I
something
agree.
that's going to be written down and we can all go back to it and read it or listen to it and be like, oh my gosh, we can pinpoint, where the trauma happens.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's super interesting. So, before we finish up here, I have like two more questions to ask
Mhm.
you. Oh, do you have a message for the world to know about you or from you?
Um, Not necessarily about me. Whatever you hear, whatever you know, take it as it is. I'm fairly certain and fairly confident in my character that it shows for itself. That I am a kind person, that I am nice, and that I'm not this crazy person. But it's up to you guys to judge. I'm not gonna tell you otherwise. But I think more so my message, not so much my message about myself, but this message about our culture, our community in general is we don't hold the men in our lives accountable enough. And I believe that that's what we need to start doing. Now, that doesn't mean we attack men or that we call men out and say, oh, a horrible this and that. No, acknowledge that there is hurt, acknowledge that there is trauma, and do something about it. For example, there is something wrong with my ex, and I'm not saying this in a hateful, spiteful way. When I say this, I mean he needs help. Um, he needs to see a therapist. He needs to process the emotions, the people that hurt him. And I thought that my love would be enough to heal him, but that is not true at all. That's a journey that everybody has to take on their own. And I am also going through that journey. But more often than not, women are more likely to go through that journey because we hold each other accountable. We have this community in our Hmong women that we always support one another. We always advocate for one another. But Hmong men don't have that enough. And so I want not only hold yourself accountable, but us as a community, we need to hold each other accountable and hold our men accountable. Stop saying, "Oh, because you're a man, you're allowed to do this," or "You're a man, you're not allowed to do this." Just say, "You're human. We all go through it," and just hold each other accountable and advocate for one another, especially when it comes to mental health and especially when it comes to love, because it's not that hard to give. It really isn't.
That's a good message.
No, I got it off of Pinterest. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you're same, same. All right, and then if you could be known for three things, what would you want to be known for?
Um, I'm not sure, but some things that a lot of people have told me lately is that I'm a kind, strong, and just very empathetic person, and I would like to believe that that is true about me. Um, I'm sorry, I talk about my ex a lot, but this is a podcast about, this episode is about divorce. So
Yeah, you're
um,
good.
I remember he used to always tell me, "You're not a very nice person. You're not a very kind person." And I always told him, "I'm not kind to you because you've been horrible to me." And I used to believe that I wasn't a nice person, that I wasn't kind, but I am. And that does not mean that you allow people to walk all over you. That is not what kindness is. Kindness is knowing your boundaries and giving, even sometimes when people don't deserve it. And I feel like I do quite a bit of that.
That's beautiful. And we will be doing a year recap and coming back to this episode and just kind of checking in to see where she's at later on. Yeah, but thank you so much for taking the time and spending it with me these past this past couple hours, and taking the time out of your day and sitting down with me to talk about your experiences and sharing your trauma with us, so that other people who are going through or thinking about going through what you're going through is comforted and know that they're not alone in their endeavors.
Honestly, thank you. Like, to be giving me this opportunity. At first, I was so afraid of it because I was like, I don't want to badmouth anybody. I don't want to this and that. And then, like I said, people started coming to me. People started asking me for advice. People started wondering, and I realized, what if my message, what if what I have to say helps somebody? And it doesn't have to be a couple hundred people. It can just be one person. And that is good enough for me. And I just had to mention this, but have you ever heard of the anagram test?
Isn't that personality test?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
I recently took it because I had to do it for work, and it shocked me at the results. I got the challenger, and it was somebody who always challenges the norms, somebody who always fights for justice, somebody who is a natural born leader, and all these things. And I was just like, wow, because I never saw myself like that. And just being given this opportunity along with all these other opportunities in my life, um, it just goes to show you that when you really focus on who you are and you hone into your skills and what you're born into, your life can completely change in your perspective yourself as well.
And on that note, Giving a huge shout out to all of the listeners of A Letter to the Reader podcast. Hopefully, this has helped someone in some way and has encouraged you to become the best version of you. If anything, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to message us on our email and we'll be happy to respond to you with an answer. Other than that, I hope to see you guys next time. Sincerely, the writers.
Covering bruises with makeup, you trying to keep it a secret. You wanna leave, but you don't even think it's gonna be that easy. Love ain't worth your life, I tell you that. Once you leave, don't go back.